Kamala Harris is the early frontrunner for the 2028 Democratic nomination, at least according to the weighted average of early primary polls. Among the potential contenders, Harris is polling at around 28%, well ahead of the next most popular choice, former Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, who sits at 14%. The only other candidate currently polling above 10% is Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Also in the mix are New Jersey Senator Cory Booker, along with 3 governors, Gavin Newsom of California, Tim Walz of Minnesota, and Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania. That said, when you shift the focus to the latest prediction market odds, Harris drops all the way down to 6th, behind even Stephen A. Smith, with just a 5% chance of securing the nomination. Now, there are 2 main reasons for that gap. First, there is growing speculation that Harris may instead run for governor of California, where she would instantly become the frontrunner to succeed term-limited Gavin Newsom. She is expected to make a decision on this by the end of the summer. Second, and closely tied to the first, is the reality that Harris might not be the strongest candidate in what is shaping up to be a very crowded and competitive primary. She would need to persuade national Democrats that she represents the future of the party, despite losing to Donald Trump last fall. On top of that, her close association with former President Joe Biden could become a liability, especially as intra-party criticism mounts around his age and perceived decline in physical and mental readiness during his final years in office. It's also important to note that Harris has yet to prove herself as a strong primary candidate. There was no primary in 2024. She was effectively handed the nomination after Biden stepped aside, and it's hard to forget what happened back in 2020, when she entered the race with a wave of momentum and media attention, only to flame out months before the Iowa caucuses. It's also more than worth noting that her current lead in early polling is far from commanding, despite having just been the party's nominee and benefiting from near-universal name recognition. She's only pulling in a little more than a quarter of Democratic voters' early supports. In fact, she's polling lower now than Joe Biden was during the early stages of the 2020 cycle, and while Biden did ultimately go on to win the nomination, there was a point, after disappointing finishes in Iowa, New Hampshire, and Nevada, when it looked like he might not even crack the top 3. Of course, everything changed in South Carolina, and in a wave of coordinated support, nearly every major moderate dropped out to back Biden against Bernie Sanders. But the point is that even if Harris runs, her current numbers are far from secure. And unlike Biden, she is unlikely to benefit from the same level of institutional consolidation, especially with so many other prominent Democrats eyeing the race. Right behind Harris in these early polls is often Pete Buttigieg, who rose to national prominence during the 2020 primaries as Mayor Pete when he unexpectedly won the Iowa caucuses. Alongside Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, or AOC, currently polling in 3rd, these 2 clearly lead the Democratic field when it comes to online presence. AOC commands a massive Twitter following, and clips of Buttigieg speaking frequently rack up millions of views across various social media platforms. So it's no surprise then that AOC and Buttigieg, along with Harris, are currently the most popular Democrats in terms of net favorability, meaning the gap between Democrats who view them favorably versus unfavorably. According to a recent Yale Youth poll, which surveyed 2,000 Democratic primary voters of all ages, AOC tops the list with 75% viewing her favorably and just 13% unfavorably. Kamala Harris comes in 2nd with a net favorability rating of 59.4%, while Buttigieg places 3rd at 49.5%. All 3 are very strong numbers, and given that, it makes sense to see all 3 hovering near the top of early polling. That said, it's actually Gavin Newsom who currently holds the best odds of winning the Democratic nomination, albeit at just 12%. Now, his odds are likely inflated at this early stage due to the widespread expectation that he will, in fact, run, and that if he does, he will secure major endorsements and a sizable fundraising haul right out of the gates. Meanwhile, the current polling leaders, Harris, Buttigieg, and AOC, all come with varying degrees of uncertainty about whether they will actually run. Harris, again, may instead run for governor in California. AOC just turned 35, the minimum age to run for president, and some might see her as still too young or waiting for her moment. As for Buttigieg, despite his strong communication skills and name recognition, he still hasn't held statewide office or served in Congress, which might raise questions about his experience. Another factor boosting Newsom's standing in the betting markets is his home field advantage. As governor of California, he is rooted in a Super Tuesday state that votes early and carries nearly 500 delegates, more than any other state by a mile. And it also happens to be the only state where we have seen a Democratic primary poll so far, and in that one, Newsom leads with 27%. But with all of that said, there is also a very real chance that none of the candidates that we have discussed ends up as the frontrunner once we get to 2027. Think about it. 3 years out from 2008, barely anyone outside political circles knew who Barack Obama was, and the idea of Donald Trump as a serious presidential contender was literally laughed at, even after he started polling well during the 2016 Republican primary. So with that said, names like Stephen A. Smith, Wes Moore, Andy Beshear, or even Mark Cuban shouldn't be dismissed. Personally, I think Wes Moore, governor of Maryland, is one of the most compelling dark horses in the field, and Andy Beshear is clearly picking up steam with the more pragmatic, moderate wing of the party, especially those looking for a younger, fresh face. But honestly, if you gave me $100 and told me to bet it on this market, I wouldn't know what to do. Maybe I'd split it between a few names like Josh Shapiro or Wes Moore, who I genuinely believe are two of the strongest candidates Democrats could run, or maybe I'd go all in on a wild card like talk show host Jon Stewart. The point is, your guess is as good as mine, and that's what makes all of this so exciting. I'm definitely looking forward to more polls and developments in the months and years ahead. I'd be willing to bet that this market looks totally different a year from now, let alone 3. There are even a few names not yet listed on the market right now who could absolutely find themselves in the mix down the line. I'm thinking of Senator Ruben Gallego of Arizona, Massachusetts Governor Maura Healey, Georgia Senator Jon Ossoff, assuming he wins re-election next year, or maybe even someone like Abigail Spanberger, who's running for governor in Virginia this fall. But that just about does it for my takes on the topic. I'd love to hear yours below in the comments, and let me know what other videos or topics you'd like to see me cover next. That does it for today's video. Huge shout out to my channel members listed in the description below. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a like if you enjoyed the content. Check out more of my videos right here, and as always, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. EP.